Hi, I am the dude behind this digital Hauntology channel. You can call me Haunt, you can call me Mr. Hauntology, or you can call me by my real name, which is Nick. And this is going to be episode 6 of ranking every video game ever made. Obviously, I take every game that I've covered on this channel, and every 5 uploads, I do a check-in where I add the games that I've covered in those past 5 episodes, put them here, and try to answer that question, what's the best game that you've ever played? And right now, we've got 34 on the list, so we clearly have a lot more to go, but I'm going to keep doing this as long as the channel is around. And not only in these ranking videos do I do the rankings, but I also kind of use this as an opportunity to do a kind of state of the channel, you know, address the state of the channel to you guys, the viewers. And so first things first, the last time we made one of these was right as the channel got 1,000 subscribers. And now a couple months later, we are over 1,600 and well on our way to the road to 2,000, which is crazy. Like I said last time, and I'll keep saying it, I never thought that this channel would have gotten over 100 subscribers when I started making these videos. And so the idea that there's some level of value to these videos to other people, I mean, it's wild shit. So thank you for checking it out. And if you've been here for a while, you're the best. And if you're brand new to the channel, welcome, and we're glad to have you. And, you know, I recently opened up the membership tab on this channel, and we've got 2 members. So shout out to Smelly Uglies, shout out to Russell Bland. You guys are both the best, and you'll see their names get thrown into some of the videos because I always try to do a shout out to the supporters. And if you're interested in becoming one yourself, go check out the tab. And if you're not, continue to enjoy these videos. They're free, you know. We can keep it that way. So, yeah, other than that, I also wanted to do a quick little shout out to a couple of other creators that have been kind of supporting the channel and friends that I've made on this network. First is going to be Terry303. He makes just the best, like, unfiltered video game reviews that are usually from like the PS2 with an emphasis on like JRPGs and stuff. He's loud, he's crass, he's super opinionated, but he makes truly genuine, unfiltered videos, and I love checking in on him all the time. So you'll see him in the comments from time to time. He's the best. Go check out his channel. If it's not your style, you're just wrong, but he's cool.
So what do you want? Do you want to pick up groceries for Granny and collect animal pelts? Or do you actually want to play a video game and kill God? The answer should be painfully obvious already.
And then the other is going to be my buddy Hypertension Films. And he's, you know, become a very, you know, big supporter of this channel. Love the dude. And he recently hit 5,000 subscribers himself, probably 6,000 by the time this video goes up. And as you can see, I'm repping the boy, but that is because he recently had a 5,000 subscriber contest in which he was giving away a care package that included a one-of-a-kind Hypertension t-shirt, and your boy happened to win it. So shout outs to Johnny and shout outs to Terry. Okay, so now that we've addressed the channel on that level, you may have noticed that this channel has been I've been uploading a bit slower than I would have otherwise liked to. And that really stems from the fact that I've been wedding planning, and your boy is now married. So obviously, if you've ever done wedding planning, you know it's kind of nightmarish. A lot of things to handle, a lot of things to tackle, and a lot of moving parts. But we're on the other side of that. I have a beautiful new bride. Can't wait to spend the rest of my life with her, and it's wild because I never thought I was going to get married in the first place, but you know, once I met her, it became pretty obvious that she was the one. So, you know, go me and go my new wife. And okay, so we've addressed the channel, we've addressed me, and so now we're going to jump into this list. And the first thing that I'd like to address is that, you know, I've done it at least once before, where sometimes when I'm thinking back at this list, some things, maybe I was wrong when I threw them where I threw them. And the one that's been kind of bothering me in this instance is Alan Wake Remastered. The game is incredible. I love it to death. But when I was playing the game, at least this time around, it became kind of obvious that the game was fairly simple, a little repetitive in terms of its just level design and encounters. So even though I truly enjoy Alan Wake, I kind of soured on it slightly, I guess you would say. I still think the storytelling holds up. I still feel like the intrigue holds up, the writing, the characters, everything is cool about it. Just some of those encounters, just Alan going out for yet another, kind of jaunt through the forest, shooting up the enemies. It did get a little repetitive. And the thing is, like, when I'm thinking about this list, Solstice, I do think is a slightly better game than Alan Wake, and I wanted to correct that here. So I'm going to do just that right now, and let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks a lot better to me. Solstice is a terrific hack and slash type of game. Crazy music, incredible storytelling, great like combat ecology where like they keep adding these layers, and like the way that you end up fighting different enemy types and how they interact with the environment and the way that they interact with all of your systems. It's just terrific. And yeah, I don't know. Like when I was looking at this list, Solstice, I felt like it could be bumped up at least one more spot. I don't think that it really overshadows Voice of Cards, The Forsaken Maiden, with that being one of the best RPGs that I've played in recent years. But it definitely, yeah, let's give it over to the number 8 slot for now. All right, so with all that maintenance done, we're going to jump into the rankings. The first game for this set is going to be Killer Frequency. And Killer Frequency is rad. For the uninitiated, it's kind of a walking simulator, but it's a lot more complicated than that. It takes place in, kind of the neo 1980s. And it is essentially this, you play as a radio DJ, and you spin your records, you take calls, you run ads, you do all your stuff. But as the game progresses, you find out that there's a serial killer loose on your town, and you somehow end up in the situation where you're not only a late night radio DJ, but you're also a 911 dispatcher. And so it becomes this really cool, like, tricky game where you are spinning records, you are talking to your assistant, you're doing all this stuff, and then every once in a while you get a live caller and they have the killer right over their shoulder, and you have to help them in life or death settings. And kind of a puzzle game, kind of like a check out the environment, see what kind of clues you can kind of figure out to get each survivor saved. And really cool game. And because it has a very strict one save slot, no save scumming allowed kind of design, there's actually stakes to each one of these 911 phone calls. And so, yeah, I've never really played anything like it. It's a little like campy in its writing, and it's a little schlocky in the way that like its art style is kind of represented at times. But the idea is incredibly novel, and the execution of when the game is actually firing in all cylinders is it's doing its own thing. And here on this channel, I try to reward that kind of thing, or at least like I value that kind of thing. So in terms of this list, it's not like a game that's going to set the world on fire. So let's kind of look towards like the middle of the list. And yeah, I think I'm going to end up putting it right here. Yeah, like Killer Frequency is definitely interesting. It's novel. I recommend it to anybody that's curious, especially if you can get it on, on sale or cheap. I think that with Plague Tale Innocence, the game is pretty good, but it's definitely in that like kind of B tier survival horror kind of Last of Us style game. And it definitely, it had a lot of potential. It has a lot of cool ideas, but it's kind of a bummer to play both thematically and mechanically. Like, certain things about the game are not as sharp as they should have been, and then because the game takes place during the Black Death, it's doom and gloom in the most, like, literal sense. And, yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same with Valkyrie Profile Lilith. Game takes place preparing for Ragnarok, so it ain't, you know, too happy either. But, yeah, I think mechanically it's a lot deeper than something like Killer Frequency, and then storytelling wise there's a lot of interesting things going on with Valkyrie Profile Lilith, so I'm going to put Killer Frequency right there. And yeah, like, you know, obviously, as you just saw, if I end up really feeling haunted by this, maybe I'll change it, but I think that's a good space for it. Okay, so the next game that we covered on this channel, or the next thing I should say, because it's not a game, more of an expansion, is actually going to be the Night Springs DLC for Alan Wake 2. And, you know, that's probably my most disliked video in the history of this channel. And that really does probably stem from the title more than anything. And it was called Night Springs Kinda Sucks. And, you know, like, whatever, people didn't really seem to take too kindly to that. But I stand by it. Like, I was obviously being a little hyperbolic in terms of, like, clickbait, but at the same time, it was a little bit less it was not as polished as I would have otherwise liked. The concept is interesting. You go into the Night Springs kind of universe, which is a Twilight Zone analog for this series. You know, it's been popping up since the original game, Alan Wake 1, and Alan used to write for the Anthology series. And so it's kind of one of those things where this is an excuse for Remedy to kind of stretch their legs and try out some new stuff. And so they decided to go into a more whimsical, kind of lighthearted experience. And it's cool, you know, at least thematically, seeing using cameos from other characters in the series, like Tim Breaker, or at least a stand-in for him, and Jessie from Control, or, you know, at least a version of her, and then Rose Marigold. And, you know, again, these are all archetypes that Alan is basically writing these what-if scenarios around. And, like, so that's cool, it's fun fan service, but what really bothered me about the game was that mechanically, it was a downgrade. Alan Wake 2 functions the way that it does because it is built to be a survival horror game. These chapters are straight up action experiences for the most part. And so they give you fully upgraded weapons, you're basically a walking turret, there's tons of ammo all around. And so the way that your character is kind of moving through the environment in the engine of Alan Wake 2 doesn't really feel good, at least to me. I found myself being like, what is this, like, weird power fantasy that I'm playing? And I feel like they didn't really change up the style enough to justify turning it into an action game. And then, like, narratively, the issue that I was having was a lot of these scenarios felt like inconsequential to the greater Remedy connected universe. And in other cases, they kind of retread ground that was already introduced to us in the New Game Plus version of Alan Wake 2, which is the final draft. And so, like, other than a couple of interesting things thrown our way, especially in the Timebreaker section of the game, it really just felt like, hey, like, I thought we already knew about all of this Master of Many Worlds stuff. But I don't know. I just really didn't find it too interesting. I'm a huge Remedy fan, so of course I played it, but yeah, I expect a little bit more. And this is a bit of a spoiler. I don't want to, like, get into it quite yet, but a second DLC for Alan Wake 2 did end up coming out in the Lake House. And let's just say I'll be covering that soon. But yeah, I have strong opinions on that one. And they're different opinions than I have on Night Springs. So now the question is Night Springs being a bit of a bummer to me enough of an issue for me to bump Alan Wake 2 into a different spot? And the answer is no. So right now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put that on the list right here. And yeah, we have one more final chapter in the Alan Wake 2 anthology with the Lake House, but I'll be covering it soon. And you know, you'll have to wait for my opinion on it. And I guess while we're here, I should probably update this list to show Control was the Ultimate Edition that I played. All right. And now that we've done that, we're going to be jumping into RoboCop Rogue City, which is, you know, if you watched the video, you know that I'm a huge RoboCop fan, especially of that first film. It's a terrific, almost, I would say, perfect film. And, you know, that video did fairly well in terms of getting a lot of views and introducing a lot more people to this channel. So if you're here from the RoboCop video, hey, glad to have you, and throw it in the comments. Let me know that that's the, you know, anybody who's watching this, let me know what was the first video that actually got you into this channel, if you could, because it's been going on for a little while now, and I'm actually interested to see what your answers are. But yeah, RoboCop Rogue City, you know, licensed games, they typically have a reputation that they have for a reason. And RoboCop, I just was curious about it because I love the license so much. And so I would see it on the store shelves and I was like, yeah, maybe. But then I started hearing that the game was actually a lot better than people were giving it credit for. And so I took a risk, checked it out, and I adored this game. Super authentic to the RoboCop films. It kind of sits right in the middle of between 2 and 3. And, you know, if you watch the video, obviously I have nothing good to say about RoboCop 3. So this actually ends up being this really cool situation where it's like they continued on from the timeline of 1 and 2. And, you know, it feels kind of just naturally slotted in there. Everything looks incredible. Peter Weller's in the game. The writing is decent. There's a lot of cool side missions, very kind of open world-esque design. Feels a lot like, you know, almost like games Starbreeze used to make, like back in the day, like The Darkness, or even like Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay. And so I really like the game. The action is incredible, and even the down-tempo stuff, like you walking around as Murphy and just writing up people for like parking tickets. It captures that like really tricky thing where it's like you're a cop, like you're 90% of your job is supposed to be just like marginal law enforcement, but then obviously with it being RoboCop, the hyperviolence kicks in, and it's super fun to you know, be in control of. So terrific game, better than I ever would have thought. So where do we put it today? And yeah, I mean, considering that I just moved Alan Wake, I would say that RoboCop Rogue City, I'd put it above that. But Solstice, no, I think Solstice is just a little bit more polished. You know, it just kind of nails what it's going for, and the combat is so endlessly interesting, and the music is so good that, like, we're going to put RoboCop 1 below Solstice. I mean, look at that. Somehow RoboCop Rogue City out of Teon. These are also the guys that did Terminator Resistance back in like 2019, I believe. And look at that. Somehow RoboCop, a licensed game, has made it into the top 10 of this list, at least for now. And so hopefully Teon gets to keep making cool games. I mean, obviously they did Terminator. They've done RoboCop now. Maybe they'll do Judge Dredd, or maybe they'll be able to do some cool shooter license. But pick it up if you haven't. It's pretty great. All right, so the next video that I covered was actually a 2-for-1 special kind of situation, and that was I covered the 2 entries into The Darkness. The Darkness 1, we'll start there. Obviously, this is a comic book adaptation, but it's through Starbreeze, the guys who did Butcher Bay, and this is kind of their response to the hit that was the Chronicles of Riddick. And yeah, man, like there was a time where I would have told you that The Darkness was easily within my top 10 games of all time. And even before I replayed it, I still felt very, very, very strongly about the game, even all these years later. But obviously, going back and checking something out, you know, this many years after it had come out, I still see all of the beauty of it, like the storytelling, the characters, the kind of believability of the world, and the immersive, like, just design of everything. You really do feel rooted into this space, and like using the subway stations to get around. Everything is just so convincing, so good, and it still, in a lot of cases, holds up. Some of their faces look a little busted, but yeah, everything else is pretty strong. But from a gameplay perspective, it has not aged well. The gunplay, just flat out, I'd go as far as to say as it sucks. Moving around, you walk at a snail's pace, and then there's the fact that, like, the story, without spoiling it here, there is kind of this big moment that changes the rest of that narrative. And the first time I played this game, the first time I ever saw it, it absolutely floored me. You know, like, I was taken off guard, and that completely colored the rest of my experience with the game. But now, years later, you know it's coming. You see the beat in a different kind of light, and it didn't hit right the same way. Like, not only was it, like, not surprising, but it was also, like, just more, like, kind of unearned and a little gross. And, like, you know, obviously when I played the game the first time, I was an edgy young boy, and so obviously it just, like, fired up and hit me, and I was like, oh fuck yes, like, we got to figure this out now. But now I'm you know, on my way to becoming an old man, and you know, it didn't feel the same. Like, it didn't pack the same punch. So I love The Darkness. Great soundtrack too, by the way. First person shooters on this list. What else would I compare it to? If I'm comparing it to, like, something like RoboCop Rogue City, it doesn't even come close. I wouldn't say that it's better than, maybe, no, let's see. You know what? I think I'm going to put it maybe right here. I think in this case, you know, the Alan Wake's American Nightmare is pretty strong narratively, has kind of a weird experience in terms of gameplay, it being like a Groundhog Day kind of looping narrative, and it's a really short experience. The Darkness is obviously, you know, pretty ambitious, pretty big project. I think Alan Wake's American Nightmare does kind of still win out on the gameplay front, but yeah, like, The Darkness just manages to have a, like, really awesome world, really cool writing for the most part, and yeah, like, I just don't feel comfortable putting it any lower on the list than that. And then 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim it's its own whacked out thing. If you don't even know what that game is, go check out the video. But somewhere between a ambitious sci-fi graphic novel or visual novel, and then a really cool strategy RPG. Really unique experience, and I'm still wrapping my head around what that thing even was or even is. Like, but it's definitely one of a kind. Okay, so the sequel, The Darkness 2. First and foremost, the game plays like so much better than the first game. Shooting is incredible. You have kind of this quad wielding system that they introduced where you have two tentacles that can rip and tear coming over your shoulders, and then you have, you know, the akimbo pistols and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, just even today it is still fun to play, almost like in the same vein as something like Doom 2016. Visceral, fast, just graphic, and just unadulterated power fantasy. Storytelling, I don't know if it's as, like, earnest as what they did in The Darkness 1. I think The Darkness 1 is going to have more of an emotional impact than the story that is here. This is, you know, if The Darkness 1 is kind of an edgy game, The Darkness 2 is like a straight up edgelord game. Like both middle fingers up kind of shit, and, you know, and even to its detriment at times. Sometimes its writing can be a little gross, especially when it comes to, like, just, over sexualization and like, just like violence towards women and just like all this kind of like weird stuff. It works in like the pulpy nature of the game. And but yeah, like playing it is just so fucking fun, and then it also has an incredible art style. So I do actually think the Darkness 2 is an improvement on the first game, even if the story in the first game is really going to be what you're going to remember from this series, even years removed from playing them. So in that case, I would put the Darkness 2 probably... I would say I'd put it between Alan Wake Remastered and Quantum Break. Yeah, like Quantum Break is its own thing. It's really interesting TV show meets Remedy shooter, short, and you spend a lot of the time with the controller in your lap just watching a TV show. But really cool game, really big set pieces, good action, and kind of the blueprint for some of the modern Remedy stuff that we're doing. And yeah, like I just think the Darkness 2 is a little bit more fully fleshed out, and the gameplay, even though Quantum Break has terrific gameplay, I do think that Quantum Break, if you actually look at all of the encounters that you're doing between watching TV shows, there's only like maybe a dozen, maybe a little bit more than that, but like there's not as much fighting in that game as you might remember. So yeah, Darkness 2, I'm going to put that one above Quantum Break. And then there's the final game for today's upload, which is going to be Beyond Good and Evil. In this case, this is not going to be the PS2 copy that I just held up, but it's going to be the 20th anniversary edition that was released after the 20th anniversary had actually come around. So yeah, Beyond Good and Evil, if you've watched the video, it's pretty clear that that is one of my favorite games that I've ever played of all time. And while it'd be pretty easy to say like, hey, that's just nostalgia, and there definitely is like some level of that connected to this game, but really every time I play this, and this is probably the fourth time I've played this game, played it, back in the day probably twice, and then they did an HD remaster back on the Xbox and PS3, and then now here we are with the 20th anniversary of the game. And I feel like every time I play this game, I'm grabbing something new out of it that I, maybe I kind of noticed it the first couple playthroughs, but now it's hitting me in this completely different context. And, at its core, it's a Legend of Zelda kind of style clone, but they added wrinkles to it with driving your hovercraft around the environments, which eventually takes flight as it, gets a module that it can slot into. And then there's the whole, kind of Pokemon Snap-esque, side mission where you're taking pictures of all the wildlife found around the planet of Hylis. And, the game is, pretty simple, but, very entertaining, great characters, great voice acting, cool story, maybe a little bit of a stumble towards the end of the game in the grand scheme of things, but really what sold itself as, to me, why I keep finding myself endlessly interested in it is just the world building. Unique peoples, kind of paying attention to almost building these cultures around things like food, things like written language, things like, almost like pigeon type languages that crop up. And then this music, this soundtrack that almost kind of dives into world music, where it's all of the influences are coming from all over the world. And it's just, it feels authentically Beyond Good and Evil. There's no other world that I've ever read about or experienced that feels anything like it. And I don't know, I can't get enough of it. Obviously the sequel, it got announced back in 2005 and we still don't have it, so who knows. They keep bringing it out every couple years. Recently they said that they got a new director for it after Michel Ancel left. But yeah, it's one of a kind. And so old PS2 game 2003, I still find it relevant today. And so, obviously, it's a very important game to me. So, if we look at the stuff we added today, I'm definitely going to be putting it above you know, Killer Frequency, The Darkness 2. Yeah, I'm still gonna put it above that. I'm even gonna put it above RoboCop Rogue City. I honestly think that, like, as I'm combing up this list, it can't go any higher than Visage. And I think it can potentially go... I think I'm going to put it one below A Plague Tale Requiem. Yeah, A Plague Tale Requiem is kind of a tour de force in terms of, like, performances, storytelling, just kind of bleak, you know, scenario writing. It is an improvement above its, you know, I guess the game that came before it, A Plague Tale Innocence, in every single way. Every single way. And really heavy subject matter, incredible just rat tech where they like flood the environments with just thousands and thousands of rats at a time. Not, you know, necessarily fun to play all the time in the same way that the first one was, in terms of like just how bleak it actually is. Like, it is one of those games where it's like a Murphy's Law kind of experience, where it's just like, is it really going to continue getting worse for our characters at every you know, point, at every junction? But I do think that it is insanely polished, and even though Beyond Good and Evil is something that I could recommend to anybody, I just think I might recommend A Plague Tale Requiem a little bit more. And so that's going to actually conclude the video for today. And, you know, I'll be back doing one of these after I've done 5 more videos. You know, if you're interested in the Lake House, that one's next. And I got a couple more in the chamber. So, I hope to see you in the next video. And until then, you're all beautiful people, and I hope that you have a great day.